Hello, and a very warm welcome to a Bergkamp Wonderland, an Arsenal podcast. My name is Kris, and I'll be your host for this evening. It's my first time, so please go easy on me. Gimli is unable to join us tonight due to a very unfortunate late-night incident with a hot water bottle during the week. Probably the less said about that, the better, but he will return soon, I promise. So on to the show. Our guests tonight. First up, we have our producer from the Bathtub of Horrors. He's the brains, the beard, the bear. It's Danny the GFP. Hello, Danny.
That's very well organised. I didn't know you were going to do any of that lot.
Oh, yes.
It's bad news about Gimli. It took 3 grown firemen to get that water bottle off of him.
3 grown firemen as opposed to 3 ungrown firemen.
All I'm going to say is balls deep. That's all I'm going to say.
And on that delightful image, we'll move on. Next up, we have a man whose dulcet tones make even our fellow pod smoothie FK jealous. It's my favourite Canadian gentleman since Bret the Hitman Hart. It's ABW chief blogger. It's Geoff Hollandfriend. Hello, Geoff.
Hello. FK is going to have me for that one, I think.
He is.
Yeah.
I can hear him sweating from there. How are you doing, Geoff? You all right?
I'm good. There's no pressure on me now. I've been sick a bit this week, so my dulcet tones, as you say, might not be as perfect as usual.
I can guarantee there's dogs all over the country just turning their heads slightly to the side.
Very good. Hey, a nice pronunciation of my name. I appreciate that.
Oh, thank you. Well, I have to get something right, so I'm glad I got that one right.
Fucking show off.
I will stick to Geoff, though, so... Finally this week we have, in my opinion, a legend in the Arsenal blogging and sharing arena, opinion sharing arena I should say, as well as a regular voice in the podcast world. I'm sure you will have heard of him before. As it says on his website, eat, sleep, breathe, drink Arsenal. It's a privilege for us to welcome to the show Mr. Goonerholic. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Kris. Thank you very much indeed for that. I'm still trying to rid myself of the image of the hot water bottle.
Trust me, it's been burnt on our eyes for weeks, as has Danny's picture in the bathtub, to be fair, so it's 2 horrible images we'll have to try and get rid of.
Lady's favourite.
The Welsh remake of an American Pie.
Oh, God. There's an even more worse image in there somewhere. Right, we'll start the show as we always do with some scores. I don't think there's many, but Danny, what have you got for us?
Well, the under-18s, the under-21s, the under-19 Champions League, and the ladies, none of them played. Back to you.
Splendid. Okay, well, that was brief, wasn't it? I'll just keep everyone informed as to how the mighty Barbican Pirates got on this week. Do forgive the beeping, that's my dishwasher.
You said that would happen. As soon as we start, it goes off.
As soon as we start, I knew it would happen.
Say, Jeeves, shut up, I'm podcasting.
Jeeves, fetch the Spitfire. So this week we had a game on Sunday. We played on 3G on a plastic pitch. If anyone remembers the games in Luton all those years ago on that dreadful plastic pitch, I can tell you it's probably worse than that. So you can probably predict what's coming next. Unfortunately, it was another defeat. We lost 7-3 to Real Saltash Reserves.
Is that the team that Moyes has gone to manage?
No, that's Real Sociedad, but I would say Saltash were better.
Oh.
Saltash, they came all the way from Cornwall for a game on a 3G pitch.
Oh, we went all the way to Cornwall to play them. That's what's even worse. It was it wasn't the most pleasant pitch in the world, but no, we were 5-0 down at half time, and I had to have some very strong words with the lads, but we managed to get 3 back. Striker Supreme Callum Knight got another hat-trick, so that's 2 hat-tricks in 3 games for him.
What, your bloke? The young 18-year-old?
Young 18-year-old, yeah.
He got a hat-trick?
He got a hat-trick, and not only that, he got a call-up to represent a Southwest team as well. So
contract him. What team does he support?
I don't know. Oh, he's a United fan, actually. I've seen him in a United shirt. So
Kill him.
We'll have to change that. But the Arsenal supporting players in the team is far outweighs the other teams, so we're doing all right.
Is Dan? Dan's a Gooner, isn't he?
Dan Amador, who will be listening to the show at some point tonight, yeah, he is indeed a Gooner.
And his missus is a Liverpool fan?
I don't know. Actually,
I'm sure in her Twitter account.
That's Bert, I think.
Is it?
Yeah.
Hello, Bert.
Our photographer is his missus, and she is a Liverpool fan. So
there's a very West Country flavour to the show too.
Yeah, absolutely. Who are? So on with that. So we have a friendly possibly on Sunday because unfortunately due to the wonderful weather in Devon, our game has been rained off this weekend. So we might have a friendly. I'll keep you informed if we do. So there we are. So moving on, we can put this off no longer, gents. I'm afraid. Swansea last weekend.
Boo.
I don't think it needs too much introduction. So, Holic, if I can come to you just to give us your thoughts on what went right or wrong. Probably more of what went wrong, to be honest.
And didn't it just? Although actually it wasn't as bad a performance as they had against Anderlecht, but I was praying for the first half an hour when we started so slowly and sat back that it was kind of this deliberate plan to give the back four some cover, and that like last season when we went there we did pretty much the same, invited them onto us, and when they'd blown themselves out we just went up the other end, knocked in a couple, took the 3 points home, thank you very much. And I was certainly expecting that after the last 10 minutes of the first half, when we kind of broke free of the shackles a little bit, didn't we? And we had 2 or 3 chances in the last 5 or 10 minutes. But what followed, let's be fair, the goal was it was an excellent goal. And it was always coming, I thought, on the break, because we looked as though Sanchez was just a class apart from anything else on the pitch. But you can't just go and score 1 goal and then, in the way that we committed players forward for the second, bearing in mind what we'd done in the first half hour and proved to ourselves that we could keep them at bay, we just exposed poor Callum Chambers, who, yeah, I think is an excellent player. He's done very well up until the last couple of weeks, but he was obviously from square one having real problems on Sunday. And you might want to take over from here, because this is the point at which I started crying.
You and me both, to be fair. I'll come to you next, Ali, if I may. Holic touched on it there. The pressing when we were in front. It's been a hot topic in the Arsenal community. Quite strongly voiced people's opinions on what we should have done. How did you feel when you saw 8 players ahead of the ball when we were 1-0 up after 75 minutes?
Well, wasn't it much like the Feyenoord manager said that when we were 3-0 up, and they said, and we could see they were still pushing for goals, so we decided to attack. And the manager told us, I think he said, the manager said, if we keep attacking, they'll keep attacking, and we can score the goals. I think it's just...
Anderlecht game, is it?
Yeah. What did I say?
Feyenoord.
Did I?
Yeah.
Getting me Dutch and me Belgium mixed up. I should go to the north. No, I do know the difference between the Jupiter League and the Eredivisie. There you go. I think I've reclaimed my bit of football knowledge there. Thank you very much. I think it's absolutely ridiculous. I mean, if you go... I mean, Swansea, we lost 2-0 away there a couple of years ago, didn't we? And if you go there and you get 1-0 up, I mean, what minute? In the 63rd minute, I mean, everyone's getting booked left, right and centre. I was just looking at this earlier. Hold on, where's this one? And it said there was... where's the yellow cards? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 yellow cards before anybody had even scored. And all those yellow... The referee was just... I think he was just on one. But to get back to your point, it's mental to think that you go 1-0 away at a team that are at the top part of the table, that are having a good season, and you keep attacking, like you were saying. We had 14 players ahead of the ball. We had Szczesny leading the charge. We had nobody... It's just ridiculous. We've got hard enough trouble as it is defending, let alone when you're away and you've got hardly any players playing in their right position, and poor old Nacho wandering around going, I don't know. Then his Spanish people listening out there, that was a reference to 40 Towers. It's not me. I watched an episode of that last night. It's the one with the Waldorf salad. But anyway, I shall get on. It's ridiculous. The answer, in a simple word, it is ridiculous. The levels of the tactics, the 4-1-4-1, they're constantly attacking. Just think, if we would go like the old days, score a goal, sit back, we would be doing so much better, and that's what we need to do.
Very, very well summed up. Geoff, I'll come to you next. Swansea away from home, obviously no game at this level. It's the old cliche, there's no easy games in the Premier League. But surely if you want to win a championship, if you want to be competitive, surely, particularly when you go 1-up with sort of 20 minutes to go, this is a game you've got to be winning, isn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, I think for me, the game had a familiar feel to it. As I watched, I don't think there was anything too surprising that I saw there, especially after the capitulation against Anderlecht. which is disappointing because you'd like professionals to sort of learn from that. And I think Perry Groves touched on it last week when he talked about game management. It's been sort of a hot subject lately, how we close out games, what we're doing on the pitch to stop attacking. And when you see us bombarding forward at 1-0 up, it's a bit disappointing. A couple things I noticed from the game that I wanted to quickly talk about. I think Holic touched on it when he said that we were coming into our own before the half, and I thought the half hit us maybe at the wrong time. Ramsey had that delicious volley that just looked like it skimmed the post, and he was very close with that. But we were starting to come into the game, and the half kind of affected us, and we came out flat again. But fortunately, Oxlade-Chamberlain had a fantastic run, moved the ball onto Welbeck, and Sanchez clearly wanted it more than anyone else. And on the Ox as well, I thought he had a great game. He's been really up and down this season. So he was doing quite well. But yeah, you have to defend better. You can't get caught forward. And then we got caught with the ball. We had quite a few guys in the final third, and they counterattacked. And this is one that I'm going to put out there to all of you and let you know. As I watched, they counterattacked us. Gibbs got back and he took the professional foul. And I said, and this is to my credit, I'm going to share this with you. I said in the WhatsApp group, that was a great foul, because a lot of the games we've watched this year, we've been counterattacked and we've let them run through. I'm thinking of Dortmund. I think even not necessarily counterattack, but the way Hazard ran at us at Chelsea. So I thought it was a really good foul. And then, of course, I had to eat my words because Sigurdsson scored against us. I also just wanted to touch on one more thing. I thought their substitutes were really positive. It was Barrow that ran through the center of our midfield to take that foul off of Gibbs. And then, of course, Gomez, famously, that was his first touch, but he applied pressure on our back line.
It's a beautiful segue, actually, what you said there, Geoff, and I agree with every point you've made there. You touched on there the substitutions. It's something I'd like to cover. In my humble opinion, and I'm by no means qualified at the level Arsene is clearly, but in my view, he said something that was very interesting after the game, where he said that that we were in control of the game and we sort of relinquished control. I didn't necessarily agree with that. I think we were very out of control of the game, almost from when we were in front, because we seemed to then hand the advantage back. His idea was, or he claims that we should have pushed forward to get the second goal because that would have killed the game. Now, my view on that is Theo Walcott would probably have been, okay, granted he's working his way back to fitness, but you could probably say Podolski as well. If you really do believe that the mentality of the team is that when you're 1-0 up with 20 minutes to go, you need to push on and get the second goal, surely the sensible substitution would have been then to bring on someone like Walcott, hit them on the break when they are going to push forward players to try and hit us we can catch them on the counter basically to get the second goal. Whereas instead we pushed everyone forward, we conceded the equaliser, then we were on the back foot and we made the substitutions when we were chasing the game. Holic, do you think that it was a mistake to make the substitutions that we made when we made them? Is there anything that you possibly would have done a bit differently on that respect?
I wouldn't disagree with what you said. I think we've all been waiting for a while now to see a side that has Walcott, Sanchez and Welbeck when we're breaking like that. And it was an ideal opportunity for us, I thought, to maybe introduce that, to sit and hold as we did in the first half an hour, but know that when we did get the ball and when we did break, we had those three who are going to scare the living daylights out of somebody. Somewhere along the line, someone's going to get a terrible beating from us. But God knows, I hope it needs to come soon, and I don't know that it's going to be Manchester United.
We can but hope.
Oh, yeah.
It'll either be that or it'll be Dortmund, because it would just be so typically Arsenal to go and thrash somebody that you least expect it to be. So, well,
to be fair, they have shown down the years that when we've got into a little bit of a rut like this, they do produce something, as you say. It's that Dortmund-like, Bayern Munich the same, and let's please it comes soon.
Oh God, yes, please. Geoff, you had something to add on the substitutions.
Yeah, it's something that when we look back a year ago, when we were in that fine calendar year run that we had, here's a difference in approach from Arsene. Last year, this time when we got 1-0 up away from home, he would have put on another two fullbacks. And he did do that. I can remember Vermaelen and Monreal would come in on either side ahead of our fullbacks, and he'd shut that game down. Now, that's not to say that he wouldn't choose to do that. He doesn't have the players to do that at this point. So I can see it both ways, but it's interesting to note a difference in approach based on the personnel available to him.
Yeah, I think that's a very fair point. I think that he's definitely changed over the years. Almost, he seems to have changed his philosophy on games. We had a question actually, which I'll just throw in at this point, and Danny, I'll come to you on this in a moment. We had a question on our Facebook page from Jazz Dahewal, I believe that's how you pronounce his name. Sorry, Jazz, if I butchered that. But he says on tactics, and I'll cover sort of a little bit with tactics and defence in the same situation here. But he says. Everyone's on about tactics and the board, etc. But I personally feel there's a massive void in terms of confidence in the team. I don't feel there's anyone employed at the club that works on the players.
I've lost you, Kris.
Sorry, is that better?
Yeah, that's it. Go on.
Sorry. So he says, I don't feel there's anyone employed at the club that works on the club's psychology. If there is, that person needs to be replaced. Just imagine if these players had the belief, we wouldn't really need a captain because the players would give 100% commitment for the cause. We all know how it feels when we're full of confidence. We fear nothing. Nerves disappear. And what were your thoughts on the matter? And Danny, if I can just ask you, I've got a stat for you with regards to our defending. Arsenal have lost more points from a winning position than any other team in the Premier League this season. What do you think of that and addressing Jazz's question with regards to team confidence?
I was a little bit mental in this day and age. You would think that Wenger would be one of the first people to come in with this new aim of bringing in player psychology, because in a lot of sports, a lot of teams do it, and Wenger was meant to be an innovator of new ideas. Like when he first came to the club, we all know the history of what he did with the diet and the training and the prolonging people's careers. So you'd have thought this would have been something that people would have done that he would have implemented straight away. And I'm sure, I remember, isn't it Liverpool have got a psychologist, and maybe Man United have got one? Yeah. I know maybe Chelsea. I know I've heard other. I know we had England had one. Was it Ray Parlour? Or was when Ray Parlour? He said, "Oh, you want
the difference between a psychologist and a faith healer."
Yeah,
is that what she was?
Yeah.
And I don't believe, or I do believe that there is a psychologist available to them.
Well, there is at Arsenal.
Yeah.
And is it because stubbornness they don't use it, or is it just not the real done thing in football?
I don't know that they're not used.
Oh God, I think we need it, because it seems to be that from watching them that they have no belief in the fact that if we're winning, we can hold on to that lead. It's almost as if they resigned to the fact that we're going to lose the lead and lose the game.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. I'd also like to touch on defence with Holic and Geoff as well. Holic, I'll come to you with another cracking little stat that I found this week, which alarmed me, to be honest. And that is that 8 goals have been conceded by Arsenal this season from headers inside the box. That's eight goals out of the 13 that we've shipped this season. I don't suppose it takes a sort of a genius to work out that when Bafétimbi Gomis, whose head was probably bigger than Monreal's body, came on, that he was always going to outjump him at that position. You touched on it earlier with regards to the Chambers situation. Bearing in mind when Gomis, I think it should have been done earlier, but even if we did leave it late, when Gomis came on, would you have liked to have seen Chambers moved into the central defensive position and either Bellerin brought on at right back, or maybe just shut the game down with a further defensive move?
As I said at the weekend, it's an easy game with the benefit of hindsight, isn't it? But actually, I would have started with Chambers at centre-half for the game, because I thought there was a real possibility that they were going to bully Monreal from the off, even with Boney on there. And to be fair, I thought Monreal coped with Boney very well. Another disturbing image. I did not like hearing about people saying Monreal had Boney in his pocket. But...
That's wrong. That's wrong on so many levels.
On lots of levels. But no, the general point is, I think you're right. Once Gomes came on, the size of the guy, unfortunately, Arsenal are going to be very rigid in that they're going to have Mertesacker on the right-hand side, Monreal on the left. And even if they weren't, Gomes was always going to head towards Monreal, because he knew he was going to have the power, the size and everything, the beating of him. So, yeah, I would have started with Chambers there, but certainly when Gomez came on, I would have switched him across.
Yeah, absolutely. Geoff, just to sort of wrap up the defensive side of things and move this on, anyone that listens to this podcast will know that I've long been quite a staunch defender of Mikel Arteta. I think he's a player that far too many people have been quick to write off. And whilst I accept that his sort of better years, quote unquote, may be behind him and his legs are starting to fade, I would be more concerned about the form of Matteo Flamini. And I think that far too many people have sort of have written off Arteta, and I think you only had to see just how important that Arteta is to this team when he came off against Anderlecht. We saw what happened. He was obviously missing from the Swansea game, and I think from a Flamini that we had several years ago when he first came to the club, he had a player like Cesc Fabregas. Sorry, I just threw up a bit there. He was alongside him, and I think that made him a better player probably than he really was before he left for Milan. Now, when we see a player like him playing against Swansea, I thought he was very scattergun was the way I would describe him. He was all over the place, whereas Arteta generally, he will only do the simple things, sideways passes and slow the play down. Do you think that situation where we're having to rely on Flamini now needs to be addressed? Would you rather see someone like a Wilshere in that role?
We don't have a lot of options here, and I agree with the sentiment about Arteta. I think that he's been better in that position. You and I have talked about this a little bit before. I don't think Flamini's having a terrific season. There's been a lot of calls for Arteta, but then once he's gone, Flamini has hardly taken his chance for glory here. But we don't have a lot of choices in that position, at least not until January. And hopefully we can bring somebody in there. But it's really a defensive unit, isn't it? I mean, if you look at our back line, with Monreal where he's been playing, with Chambers where he's been playing, we're missing two key starters there. And then once you rotate Arteta out due to injury, we've got Flamini in that spot. And really, it's not a settled back line. It's not a settled defensive unit. And then on top of that, if you layer the sort of this 4-1-4-1, and I think really even when he starts Ramsey or Wilshere alongside Flamini, that's more of a box-to-box midfielder that plays in there. That formation highlights a weakness in our team, and I know teams when they line up against us, they know if they apply pressure in that one position just ahead of our defense, they'll typically get a bit of they'll get a point or three from us, and that's been symptomatic for a long time. I know even when they apply pressure on Arteta, same thing happens, that we tend to be very reactive in the game because we're not able to pass our way into it. So it's a good point. I don't know if I'd want to see Wilshere there or not. I think if Arteta's healthy, he's our guy right now, and then we just make the best of it from there. But it's a bigger subject of defensiveness and personnel available.
Yeah, I agree. We'll come on to January in a moment. We'll have a little touch on that as to who we might like to bring in, or indeed what position. But I'll move things along now. Danny, I'm going to start with you on the next subject because I know it's one that's very close to your heart, and I know that you're very keen to sit on the fence in this issue with regards to the manager, or maybe not. Obviously, a lot of us have seen the videos that went round on Sunday night, and during the week there's been some quite funny vines that have gone around about a certain gentleman. But there's been an awful lot of people that have sort of said that they've had enough. There's protests being arranged, which we'll come on to in a minute. From the manager's point of view, at this stage, do you think we're getting to a situation much before the cup final last year where there's pressure being put on him to go? Could you see him leaving of his own accord? Could you see him being kicked out? And what's your sort of general views on where we are at the moment?
Well, I think we're up shit creek without any paddles, and we've got mittens on, and we're going nowhere. I think this has been the most amount of pressure I think he has ever been on. I know after the 1-0 loss, was it 1-0 at home to Aston Villa at the beginning of last season? I know we lost at home. 3-1. Oh, it's just got even bloody worse. I think I'd try to block it out and got it down to there. But then there was a hell of a load of pressure because we just bought the second most expensive Premier League player. Oh, had we just bought him, or did he come in just after the first game of the season? Oh, there you go then. There was no pressure on him. No, but I think now after buying Ozil for 42 and buying Sanchez for 30, 34, 35, I think people's expectations are to go on and challenge for the league, not be beaten away. I mean, we've only lost 2 league games, but I think it's the manner in which we're losing games. It's the fact that we had a decent formation last season, which we were scoring lots of goals, and we weren't doing too good at the back. But now we've changed the formation, we're doing horrendous at the back, and he's still sticking with it. And I think the fact that people have seen that we have 2 central defenders and they're blaming him. Well, I said on Goonersphere that if anybody thinks that Wenger didn't have other players lined up, then they're a little bit mad, because he obviously had targets lined up, but there again, he's always had players lined up, and then he'll offer half what they want, and then he seems to be genuinely surprised when they go, "Oh no, we want X amount." And he goes, "No, I think you'll find your player is worth this," and they go, "Well, no." And then he gets a bit closer to what they want, and then Chelsea or Man City or Man United come in and go, "We'll give you what you want plus an extra 25%. And then Wenger goes, "Well, I'm not doing that." And that's why we have no central defenders, because there's no way that a man of his football knowledge would go, "Yeah, I'll be alright going into the season with 2 central defenders, with Koscielny, who's known to take a knock, and Mertesacker, who's not always on form." It took him half a season to get on form. And I think if it wasn't for the fact that Sanchez has come in and done what I can't remember a single player coming to a Premier League club in this modern era and having such a great start. Was it 8 Premier League goals in 10 games? I mean, that is the kind of stuff that you dream of. It costs a lot of money, and he is a world-class player. But I think there's never been so much pressure on Wenger. I don't think he'll quit. They won't sack him. I know a lot of people go, "Well, he's on £8 million a year." I often say that, but I reckon whether he was on nothing or whether he's on £8 million, it wouldn't make any difference to him. He is there and he wants to do a job, and there's no way you could have predicted that half of our team would be injured yet again. And I think he won't quit. They won't sack him. He's not going to leave. All the people can shout and scream and organise protests and burn the stadium down. It's going to make no difference. The man who owns the club doesn't give a shit about football. All he cares about is money. Wenger cares about the club, cares about the players, but he seems to have lost his way. I always go back to when he took over as manager. He said, "My job is to win 1 trophy every year. If I don't do that, I'm not doing my job." So there you go.
Geoff, I'll come to you next, if I may, on this subject. We've sort of seen, obviously, the transfer side of things alone. I mean, that's been done to death. In fact, I did want to ask Holic about that in a moment. But if I can ask you, with regards to the sort of the injury situation and basically the excuses that if Arsene was here, and if he was, I'd be very happy. I'm very much Wenger in still, but even I was frustrated Sunday, and anyone that sort of follows me on Twitter will know I'm pretty positive, and I've always been very much behind the manager. And I had quite a few tweets on Sunday asking if I was okay, because I had a little bit of a meltdown. And I was frustrated. But then when I look at the cold light of day and I look at what we've got around us and the injury situation we've had, do you think it's fair to say that particularly the injury situation as a whole has possibly affected what the manager has been able to do? Or do you stand in the camp that it was still negligent to not cover what he needed beforehand?
Absolutely. The injuries have contributed this season. When you look top to bottom at the squad, we're missing a number of starters, and not just that, but he brought in a lot of players that were replacing outgoing players in the summer. So when you look at Debussy, for example, and Chambers coming in, so he's had to graft them into this team, and that's not an easy thing to do. Certainly Sanchez looks like he's hit the ground running, but we're not in this we don't have the same starting 11 that we did last year. You combine injuries into that, and we've had to make shift with how we're set up. But here's the thing, and this is something that I would sort of throw out there. And I'm a big supporter of Arsene Wenger. I'm very, very I admire what he's done with the club, and I think he has a touch of class to him that I really, really do like. And for the longest time, I was sort of a Wenger guy, but I've come to the slow realization that while I really like him, I think we need something to freshen us up. I think we need a change. And the reason that I've come to this point is that when you look at the manner, and Danny started to touch on this, the manner in which we're tying games, the manner in which we're losing, these are things that are basics. How to manage a game, defending, You look at the City game. We should close that game out and defend offset pieces a lot better. These are basic things. These are not spend £100 million on new player staff. So that sort of avoids the money conversation. Where I think we're sort of falling apart is we sort of get caught in this sort of rut of tactics every year where we're just not quite doing the basics right. And so that's kind of where I stand on that. I wouldn't call myself a WOB or an AKB. I would say that I want the manager to win a trophy with Arsenal. Nothing would make me happier than to see him win the Champions League with us. I don't want to see him go, next week or mid-season. That's just ridiculous. He deserves a chance to right the ship. We've got players coming back from injury. Ollie Giroud trained today. So, but I do think there should be some questions asked in the summer. Will those questions be asked? Probably not. I can't see him going anywhere until the end of his 3 years.
Yeah, well said. I pretty much agree with pretty much all of that. So, nothing more to add from me. Holic, I'll come to you next. With regards to the manager, anyone that's heard you sort of on various sites and podcasts, and obviously read your work, will know your views on where you stand with the manager. But do you feel like either we as a club need to make a change with how we're sort of dealing with the manager, or almost somebody needs to be putting pressure on him? Obviously, people have talked about the influence that David Dean had on him back in the day. Do you feel that something needs to change? Do you feel that the manager is dealing as best as he can with what he's got available? And also, if you can just touch briefly on, I know you had a story pre-pod that you were mentioning about sort of the future fans and some of the atmosphere that's turning a bit toxic because of this Wenger out, Wenger in situation. Can you just sort of give us a bit of a heads up on what you think of how the manager is doing and what the future holds with him at the helm, so to speak?
Yeah, absolutely. There's no secret. Up until a couple of years ago, I was staunchly in his corner because I thought the job he was doing, with no money available to him. I don't want to get into that debate about people saying there was. Actually, under the terms of the refinancing, we had to build a stash of cash that wasn't available to him, but that's another story. I think that all changed a couple of years ago, and I have said in the last couple of years that he earned the chance to work with the club that he'd kind of built with the money that was going to become available to it. And that has been forthcoming. Last season, you can say that, okay, although we fell away from a stellar calendar year in 2013, we fell away spectacularly in the league in the second half of the season, delivering the FA Cup. I thought, okay, you've now finally got some silverware on there. And I think we all expected that the club was going to kick on, particularly given, I think, the nature of his signings in an attacking sense over the summer. We've already spoken about how important Alexis has been to the side this year and the percentage of the goals that he's got. Danny Welbeck, too, is second in the scorers list, by the way. Between them, I think they've scored 17 goals in all competitions, and next comes Aaron Ramsey with 3, and people are on Aaron Ramsey's back. For me, I think it's too early for marches, demonstrations. And what is particularly gets me is the sheer level of personal abuse that the guy gets, given where he's got us to. But that doesn't mean to say that if things carry on the way they're going, we don't reach a point where I do agree with some of the criticisms. You look at, Geoff was just talking about the failure to address the defensive shortcomings in the summer. It's blatant to go into the season with 2 centre halves and Callum Chambers, one assumes was signed with that in mind, but very much a rookie, was asking perhaps for trouble, and the trouble has come. But again, it's too early. We're talking November. The league is going to be won after Christmas. And if we can, I know 12 points looks a lot at the moment, but if we can just stay in there, strengthen in January, then if it doesn't work, if it all falls apart in the second half of the season again, okay, we go revisit the debate, and I've got as open a mind as anyone. But I think to jump ship on the poor bugger now is not for me.
No, I agree.
And you asked you asked a follow-up question as well.
Yeah, if you could just tell us what you said sort of pre-pod about the potentially the next generation of fans that are going to watch, this wonderful club are being, or the parents or people around them are being put off. Can you just sort of give us a bit of insight into your experience of that?
Well, only because, and this is very selfish, I know, I'm taking my two grandkids to the Manchester United game. It's their first Premiership game. One of them has been to the Emirates Cup before, one hasn't been at all. So I'm taking two very impressionable young kids to the United game. They're absolutely thrilled to bits at the moment, and I'm just hoping and praying that when, I and anybody else who's taking young kids to that game get close to the ground, there's no sort of demonstrations going on. We've seen some incidents going on, some friendly fire, if you like, at recent matches. I would hate to have to explain to them what that's all about, and I hope it doesn't happen.
Yeah, I think that's well said. Geoff, you had something to add to this as well.
Yeah, I hope that it all goes well on the 22nd for Manchester United. It's sad when you hear about the infighting that's kind of going on and a bit about the atmosphere if potentially Man United beat us. But I want to just add a point to this, and it's actually I was reading Adebayer's comments about the atmosphere up the road, and he's talking about how the players are a little bit scared to play, and I just think about whatever happens, if there's a protest or not a protest, that keep it outside of the stadium. Our players, we touched on this a little bit. They don't seem to be in a rich vein of confidence right now. They need us more than ever. They need us right now to get behind them because they need that little bit extra to beat United on the 22nd and to push on. I think it's right to think that we're close to having one of those big games that we talked about where we can push on and develop our confidence from that. And I think that really involves the fans. So my point would be just that remember that once the whistle goes, those players need our support.
Yeah, well said, Geoff. Danny, I'll come to you on this as well. We did the ABW radio show after the game in the Anderlecht game. Was it the Anderlecht game? Yes, it was the Anderlecht game. And I was very sort of forward in my views that I cannot stand booing of the players at the end.
You got a little bit grief off of our Jason for that, didn't you?
I did. I might have gone a bit far, but in fairness, I've always said it's my opinion. I'm not saying I'm right, but from my personal opinion, I can't stand it. I think it does nobody any favours, and as much as Mr. Adebayor should probably concentrate on actually learning how to play football again and stop moaning, he has got a point. I don't think it serves any help. And equally, I think with these protests as well, again, I'm all for free speech, and I understand why people have their views. But do you think sort of either booing, chastising players, or having these demonstrations, like Geoff said, I think they should be kept out of the stadium? Do you think they have any sort of relevance or use, or do you think it has any sort of effect?
Well, I think it's just the modern society, and I'm going to say something here that I think about most things. We live in an instant gratification society where we want stuff and we want it now. Be that kids who say, I want this, I want everything. There is, whether it's even things like I'm watching The Walking Dead. In the old days, you would have a TV series and you would build up to a plot, and then the plot would go along, and this would take 5, 6, 7 episodes. Plots now, one episode, it's all over and done with, and then the next one they've moved on again. Kids, when they want something, they get it instantly. There used to be, you get stuff at your birthday and you get it for Christmas, and that would be it. Now everybody wants everything instantly, and you can't compete against Man City and Chelsea with the amount of money they've got, and you can't compete with Man United and their lunacy with money, and that's going to come a cropper, because if they don't do what they hope to do and get into the Champions League this season, they are going to be absolutely ruined financially. I mean, they're ruined financially as it is. The amount of money they're paying to pay off the interest on the debts is unbelievable. But you're not going to get anything from booing the players. I mean, I do quite like the way that it works in Spain, where when the fans are not happy with the manager, you know what they do, don't you?
white hankies.
Yeah, you wave a white hanky, and the more and more that they get waved, I think that is it's a protest, and it's a more gentlemanly process. What would be the female version of gentlemanly? More ladylike more ladylike gesture, a more refined way of going. We don't really agree with what's going on. You know, the Spanish, they're all mental. Most of them, bless them, they're more likely to go out there and chuck a donkey at the manager if they don't like him. Like they to chuck a donkey off of a I'm going off track here. It's twice I've said something about the Spanish. I love Spain.
On course. I don't want to with a runny nose behind me waving his hanky.
No, not with a bowler going round. You don't.
Let's not get it like the San Siro that year where the Inter Milan fan pushed the motorcycle off the top tier. We don't want any of that either.
They do some crazy stuff, but I love Spain. I love the Spanish. I could quite easily go and live in Spain. So if you're Spanish and listen to this, it's just I'm not being mean about you, but booing is not going to achieve everything. I'm going to say what I always say here: 406 games I've been to, 7 cup finals. I was at the Champions League final where we saw Arsenal lose. I've never booed. I've shouted at one player ever, which I've said many times. Dennis Bergkamp, told him to sort his fucking life out. You know what? He certainly did. And I've accidentally shouted at Glenn Helder, and he looked at me, but I wasn't really shouting at him. I was shouting at the player to get the fucking off, Glenn Helder. And then I think people around me thought that Glenn Helder making his debut against Forest, having a game of his life, and I'm shouting at him to get off. Well, it wasn't. But
the only time I ever got thrown out of a ground was for doing something similar with Alan Ball. We played a League Cup quarter final against Queen's Park Rangers at Loftus Road, and lost 2-1, and he missed the penalty, and I let him know I wasn't overly impressed with his performance on the evening, and I was invited by the local constabulary to leave the vicinity.
Had you been on the sherbet that night? Probably.
No, I was driving, no.
Oh, well, there you go then. There's no excuse. You very bad holic. Yes, so... young
holic.
Well, yeah, that must have been back then, yeah. But... my point is that there's no point. You cannot change everything overnight by booing, by burning the stadium down, by stringing the manager up by his testicles. It's going to make no difference. Nothing is going to change short term. You have to look at the top. What is wrong with our club starts at the top. We've got a bloke who doesn't even like football owning the club, who puts up the ticket prices every season by 3% because that's what you do in America. I've heard rumours that it's going to be between 6 and 8% rise this coming January, and with that and with us fighting for relegation, it's like I tweeted the other day. When I get frustrated with football, I do stupid tweets. I tweeted that if Sanchez has any sense, he will ask for a transfer in January transfer window because he'll have scored 50 goals and Arsenal will be in the relegation zone. And I actually had people arguing with me, telling me I was wrong. Well, fucking no shit. I was just winding people up and saying shit. There's no point. There's no point booing the players. The player isn't going to go, oh, what, you booing me because we're playing badly? Right, I'm going to up my game and I'm going to go up there and I'm going to score a goal and we're all going to be winners. No, that's not how it works.
I think to sort of draw a line into this particular topic, I'll just say 2 things. I think, one, we have to remember as Arsenal fans that we've been extremely spoiled in the last 10, 12 years. And I think some people have to understand that the success that we had and that we gained, particularly in the sort of the 2000s, the Invincibles period, and indeed before, at certain times, really going into those seasons, we had no right to win those titles, and we won them because we were the better sides in a slightly different market, and we almost overachieved given what we compete against, particularly when we were against the Chelsea money when that initially came in. And I think we have to kind of set our sort of levels of acceptance at a certain level. I think it would be boring if we won every week, and you only have to listen to sort of football phone-ins when you hear people, Man United fans, Liverpool fans calling for Rodgers' head already. United fans saying, "Oh, we're a massive club, we deserve to be at the top." It doesn't work like that.
Have you got any advice for milk while we're talking about this?
I don't know. I'm sure.
What do you do with your milk when it goes off, Kris?
You certainly don't put it back in the fridge, do you?
There you go. I think that sums it up.
And I think we also have to say as well that sort of given the position that we're in, I think I said it last week as well, Arsene Wenger will decide, 90% sure Arsene Wenger will decide when Arsene Wenger decides to leave Arsenal. I don't think he'll be forced out of the club. I think if he's always said and he's always maintained that if he doesn't feel that he can do the job to the potential that he can or to the level that he feels justifies him being there, he will walk away. I think he will only walk away when it suits him, and there's a reason he signed a 3-year contract. He obviously still feels that he can compete. But we'll move it on from there. We'll try and sort of take it in another direction. Obviously, we're in an international break at the moment. Boo. So we'll have a sort of a look at. We've got a busy Christmas period coming up, and hopefully we've got. I think somebody mentioned there earlier. I think Geoff mentioned that Olivier Giroud's back in full training today, which is great. Should give us another option.
How about the Mesut Ozil news that he's out for an extra 7 weeks?
Well, that's apparently a bit of a myth because there was talk that it was going to be 12 weeks originally, and I think the dates correspond not too differently. So I think people are going off the deep end on that one. But with that being said, it would be typical Arsenal now if all the injured players we've got out, or the majority of them, were back in January, and Arsene could come out with his famous line of, well, they'll be like new signings. And that will set alarm bells ringing. From your guys' point of view, and Geoff, I'll come to you first on this one, who or what would you like to see addressed in January? And what do you think your sort of hopes or likeliness is that we will do so?
Well, this is going to hardly be the surprise of the century. What a setup. A defensive midfielder and a center back coverage. What more can I say about that? Names, I don't know. Certainly there was rumors that we were in for Carvalho in the summer. Khedira's name seems to resurface a little bit, although he's not sort of a typical defensive player. He's more of a box-to-box or deep-line playmaker. But his name comes up. Of course, he's 6 months away from a free. So there might be an announcement or two there. I don't know. I'm not in the know. And in terms of defensive coverage, I think we've heard Reed from West Ham. I saw a little bit out of Ron Vlaar's agent today saying that talking about Manchester United's interest and Arsenal's potential interest, although that could just be agent talk. So caution away. So I don't know. But those are the two. Those are the two positions. We know it. Everyone here knows it. I'd be gobsmacked if any of you guys disagree with me on that. The likelihood that we're going to sign those guys, I don't know. I really don't. There was a good piece one of our regular columnists wrote about defensive signings, and he highlighted some of the big name defensive players that had moved in the summer or in the last couple transfer windows, and they are going at a very high price right now. You think about David Luiz going for £50 million to Paris Saint-Germain. Yeah. So we're not the type to pay over the odds. Surprise, surprise. So it's hard to say who will be available, who will want to move, who will want to come into Arsenal at that point, and who we can afford. So it's sort of a moving target. We'll see.
Very, very fair points, and the names certainly you mentioned there are ones that I've heard a little bit about. Holic, I'd like to throw another name at you. Mats Hummels. There's been a lot of talk that Manchester United were in for him.
That was the only one left. I was going with him.
I'm sorry, I stole your thunder there, but I'll certainly let you wax lyrical. Can you see? Obviously, Arsene hasn't been afraid to splash the cash in January before. We think of Arshavin, Adebayor, or Walcott. I believe Diaby was a January arrival. Probably less said about him, the better at the moment. And indeed, Jose Antonio Reyes. So do you think that he could splash sort of the amount of cash that it would take? There's figures going around of 20 million. And if he was to splash the cash, would you rather see him push the boat out for a Hummels, or would you rather go with the sort of the stopgap of a Winston Reid?
No, absolutely. Hummels. He's the best defender out there who may be available. And there's the question that when you get to it in January, I mean, even in the summer, you're wondering who's available. Well, you basically take anybody who's within a year of their contract running out. In January, you kind of think, well, players who have got 6 months left on their contract, their clubs will want more money for them than Arsenal are prepared to pay for somebody who's got 6 months left. We touched on it earlier when you said the moment that someone knows Arsenal are in for a good player, yeah. Chelsea, Manchester City, Manchester United will come in with a higher bid. That doesn't necessarily mean that the player always goes there. Yeah. I'll get it out in a minute. All that money I spent on the nose and now the mouth's backed up. But yeah, Hummels for me definitely as a central defender. If you're talking about the defensive midfielder that Geoff was, and I don't think you'll find much disagreement that they're the two positions we need to fill, I haven't got a name for you. I haven't got a clue who's available, which is why Arsene Wenger is paid what he's paid, and the staff that are up there are paid what they're paid.
I'll chuck you a name in a minute, but I did just want to mention one thing on the Hummels deal and or potential deal and these sort of deals that go on. Do you sort of buy into this thought that Arsene Wenger was saying during the summer? I know we've spoken to our other Geoff Arsenal on this subject, and he said very similar. Do you think that maybe a lot of people have criticised Per Mertesacker this year and have said that he's a sort of a spent force, which I personally disagree with. I think he's just missing his mate in Koscielny.
Exactly.
But do you think that Arsene Wenger is in that position where he didn't bring in what you sort of class as a first team defender in the summer because he couldn't get the one he wanted? And do you think that maybe someone like a Hummels, if he was to buy a defensive player, he was actually looking for somebody who can come straight into the team rather than maybe in the summer where he might have been looking at just a backup? Do you think now that he's thinking I need to put pressure on the two first choice centre halves?
For whatever my opinion is worth, I think it's had Hummels been available in the summer, I think he would have gone for him. I think the interesting thing about that is the fact that Hummels and Mertesacker, all of the German players, had an extended summer break, and so we've been having this discussion a little bit earlier than now.
Yeah.
I don't think he would have any qualms whatsoever about bringing in a player who could be first choice in that position. Because I think genuinely, despite what we say and we like to fit to our agendas, Arsene Wenger does want what's best for Arsenal. Now, we may not agree with him in everything that he does, but I have no doubt if Hummels is available, he'll get him. And if that means that Hummels and Mertesacker play and Koscielny has to do a turn on the bench, I don't think he'll be afraid to make that decision.
No, and I think you could highlight last season where arguably having Thomas Vermaelen, the club captain, out of the side brought out the best of Koscielny.
Exactly that.
And equally, I think the signing of Ospina was done purely because Szczesny played his best football when Fabianski was in form. So I think having a player behind you motivates you to perform at your very top level. So I think that's a good point. Danny, I'll come to you. I know transfers is not your favourite subject in the world.
How dare you?
Yeah, but do you have sort of any differing views? I know a lot of people have been banging on about a quote fabled DM. I'm personally in the camp that I don't think we need a specific DM, but I do think we need some sort of holding midfield player or somebody that can get box to box. Have you got any other either names or style players you'd like to see come in?
Well, before we go on to that, just you've had a little bit of hate on Twitter.
Oh, have I?
Very own Jason Schrader, friend of the pod, Carpenter out, scraping the bottom of the hosting pool now. I see. Yeah. Very, very sad. If you want to put yourself on mute and have a little cry.
Desperate times.
It is. And breaking news, my very own FK, who is on a plane leaving the country. He's going off to the Middle East, I think, or somewhere like that on work. Guess who's on the plane with him?
I know, but I won't spoil it.
Kyle Bartley, who played one game against Arsenal. I mean, one game for Swansea this season and murdered us. There you go. So, FK has said he's the most boring footballer he's ever met. So there you go.
So you're basically saying you'd like to see us bring Kyle Bartley in January then, is that what
well, anybody.
I think what he's saying is I hope Manchester United don't sign Igor Stepanovs before Saturday week.
Oh, Jesus, can you imagine?
What a very misunderstood man. I think that player, I mean, you think about 5 or 10 years ago, there was a whole raft of players who could play in the defensive midfield role that were brilliant, and you had like Gattuso, and you had who was that bloke at Liverpool who went to yeah, that's it. He was one of them. The other one who was at Barcelona still, and he played at centre back. That's it. Well, I'm thinking Mertesacker. There you go. So there used to be loads of players that played in that position. I think it's a dying position. People, years and years ago, you didn't really have that position. And I think we had Paul Davis who played it a little bit, Kevin Richardson who played it. I think Michael Thomas played it for a little bit. But I'm not sure we need that. If there's a lack of those kind of players around, then don't play with a defensive midfielder, because, like you were saying, Flamini isn't up to it. Arteta isn't really up to it anymore. So don't play that position. I reckon we can get away with playing Ramsey and Wilshere in the central midfield, and then both of them are capable of defending a little bit. Because I'm sure there's teams out there that are doing well that you don't have an out-and-out defensive midfielder. I mean, it's something I'd like to see try, because if we haven't got it and you can't buy it, then don't play players there that aren't good enough. Just try and get ball-winning players that are going to get forward. And the old fable where everyone argues about what is a box-to-box midfielder. I don't care what a box-to-box midfielder is, and I don't care that people say we can't play Ramsey and Wilshere together. They're two of our best young players, and I think those two, if they play in the centre of midfield together and have either Sanchez or Ozil playing in front of them behind a striker, that those three can run the game, because they all track back, they can all defend. I mean, Ozil can't defend. I mean, Sanchez could play in goal at the moment, he's so bloody good. But that's what I would like to see, and those two have got best part of a decade together, Wilshere and Ramsey, and I think they could build a kind of partnership in central midfield that could go on. I don't want to have a defensive midfield. We can't buy one, there are none around. We haven't got any, to stop playing it.
I think that's a fair point. I'll name drop somebody that I retweeted. I follow an article. It's a French football expert called Andrew Gimli, who I retweeted an article that he posted the other day. There's a lad playing for Lyon, who it's probably a little bit hipster for some people, but he's called Maxime Gonalons. This is a guy who the article Andrew wrote was absolutely spot on. If there was ever a player that we could go after, he would be on half the salary of Sami Khedira. Lyon, for anyone knows, are pretty much skint. And they've got two main assets. They've got Alexandre Lacazette, who I've got a real man crush on, but we can't buy any more strikers, so we'll leave him there. And they've got Gonalons. And all Gonalons does basically is he does the Blaise Matuidi role for PSG. He's good on the ball. He's got a decent range of passing. He doesn't do anything fancy. He wins tackles. And I think if you look at his percentages, I don't have them to hand. That's poor planning from my part. But he very, very rarely gives the ball away. And I think if you look at particularly Flamini, I think granted, he's a crowd favourite for smashing Danny Rose in half, but when he gets the ball, there's almost like a sense of panic. There's no composure. There's no sort of sense of where to play the ball, which is the one thing Arteta is good at, but Arteta probably doesn't have the legs to make the challenges. And with Gonalons, you'll probably get the best of both too. So he would be one that I would like to see. And I think the other thing that people forget is when they talk about this sort of large presence in the midfield, the comparisons and the talk always turns to Patrick Vieira. This is a myth. Patrick Vieira was never really a defensive holding midfielder. Manuel Petit was the man that did that job. And if you look at the invincible side, Gilberto Silva, whilst he's not a small guy, he's certainly not a massive hulking presence. He was okay, he was 6 foot plus, but he was very composed, he knew when to tackle, and he just covered where he needed to cover. And I think when you're asking somebody of the limited ability that Flamini has to cover both fullbacks when we've got 8 upfield, it's not going to happen. So I agree with you, Danny. I think just changing the formation or having players that work harder would ultimately change the way we play.
I'm looking at that Gonalons bloke on whoscored.com, and it says strengths, aerial duels, passing, dribbling, ball interception, tackling, and his styles of play. Likes to play long balls, likes to tackle. That's everything we want from a player. Exactly. And he's averaging 7.36, which is really, really good for a French team. And Lyon are on their arse, and they're third in the league, and it's with players like him that are doing so well. I mean, he's played every single game this season. He's averaging 3.4 tackles a game. Interceptions is really good, and his clearances are 2.3 clearances a game. I'm not sure what to make of that, but there was a summary. His pass percent rate 90.19%, 90% or 91%. And that's unbelievable. And man of the matches, has he had any of those? He's only had one assist, but you don't really want assists from that, do you? You just want a bloke who's going to break up play and give the ball back.
And that's what he does. He's just come into the French national squad for the friendlies in the next two games because Matuidi has dropped out with injury. So
plus, whenever they say Gonalons, we can go no, Gonalons.
I would encourage anyone who doesn't follow or who wants to read the article. As I say, it was done by Andrew Gibney on Twitter. He's at Gibney, GIBNEY_A. I did retweet the article. I'll see if I can dig it out and retweet it from the pod account. But it's a very good read, and as Danny's just read there, the stats speak for themselves.
So. And he's transfermarket.co.uk rate him as worth about £12 million. He's got 6 caps for France, 6 for under 21s, 7 for the under 19s. He's got a bit of a nose on him, which is always good.
That's always good.
Yeah, and he's 1 metre 87. What does that even mean? 1 metre 87. Give me it in real. It's 6'2".
6'2", yeah.
There you go. Good player. I like him.
We should also mention as well that
I've never heard of him, but I like him.
You have now. Football hipsters.
Hey.
My League One references do come in handy from time to time.
Yeah.
We should also mention as well that Paris Saint-Germain are looking to get rid of Johan Kabay, so we could go through all that.
Are they?
Perhaps, yes.
Why? He went there and
exactly what I was thinking.
He went there and did nothing.
He's been appalling since he went to PSG. His form's dropped. He can't get in the side. He's been pretty terrible. And anyone that remembers over the summer, we were linked with a lad called Adlan Rabiot. He's now signed a new contract, and the belief in France now is that they'll move Kabay at least on loan in January, if not on a permanent deal, if they can get their money back. So,
and he also plays a lot of games, which is important. They play 38 games a season in France. This season he's played every game. Last season he missed 2. Season before that he missed 3. Season before that he missed 3. So there you go. Yeah. And he's getting 50 games a season.
Yeah, absolutely. Geoff, you take last word on this one.
Just to wrap up thought, and just going back to what Danny had said about the position of a defensive midfielder, I do think that we should be trying for that spot. And I think when you look at the team that is likely going to win the Premier League this year, they'll have somebody in that role, whether it's the Matic at Chelsea or they've got a couple guys that sort of rotate in at Man City. So I do think that teams that win the Premier League get their defense right, and it's the defensive unit. It's not just the back four and how they defend. You know, you look at these teams that are free-flowing attacking sides that don't get their defense right, and they end up slipping and not winning the title. So
who could you mean?
Yeah, I don't know. But I think also, as Danny quite rightly points out, that if we can't get someone, we do need to adjust how we play that, because we have that single point of failure that sits in front of our defense right now, and I think we need to share that load between two players. One final guy that I'll throw out there, but maybe you guys will say no. What's the story on Kondogbia at Monaco? He's a player I've seen a few times and I like, but I don't watch often enough.
I can fill you in on that one if you like. Basically, Monaco are all over the shop. They're all over the shop financially because their owner, whose name escapes me, but it's a really amusing name, so that's annoying. Danny, you can look that one up. You're good at these things. But he's essentially a sheikh or a prince, very, very wealthy guy. He's employed a manager that he doesn't really want to be there. Obviously, Monaco shipped out Falcao because they couldn't really afford him. They are openly sort of courting bids for Jean Moutinho, who's
Dmitry
Rubilev, that's the one, the Russian guy.
No.
Indeed. And with Kondogbia, from what the reports are, or from what people are talking about, is that he is on the radar of 6 or 7 large clubs. And the thought is that Monaco, very similar to the Falcao deal, they would accept a loan deal to take him away with view to a permanent transfer, because again, it just frees up money. The talk in Monaco is that they're going to move quite strongly. Is that even a word? Quite firmly, that's a better word, for Arsene Wenger at the end of the season. I can't see it happening, just purely because I think, as we said earlier, Arsene will be here as long as he wants to be here. But they're trying to make a big play for Arsene because they want to go back to the sort of French model, and they want to try and build the club from the sort of the ground upwards. But because of their financial situation, because the owner seems to be getting a bit bored, pretty much all their bigger assets are up for sale. Kondogbia is another one of those. The biggest problem I think you're going to have is that because it's Monaco, look how much they wanted for Falcao just on loan. So I think the price tag would be the biggest issue we'd have. Equally, you could say the European clubs, I know Inter Milan are keen, and there are a couple of clubs in Spain that are keen, but the money is not so big in Spain. So
how about Mvilla doing wonders at Inter?
On loan, I don't think anyone's doing wonders on loan.
Definitely,
but,
definitely old matey boy. And Vidic,
Vidic is having an absolute
retire now. Just leave.
Absolute mare. The one good thing I could say on the Kondogbia thing would be, if you look at Chelsea, they've got Matic and John Obi Mikel, less said the better. Manchester City have got Mangala and Fernandinho. Liverpool I don't think could compete with us if we went in. So I don't think there'd be a huge competition. I don't think United are in the market for that type of player either. So on the plus side, yes, potentially I could see it happening. if I had to put my neck on the block, I think we're more likely to go for somebody like Laporte at Athletic Bilbao, who, although he's a centre back, can play. He's another one of these players that can play centre back, right back, defensive midfield, and he's only 20. So I could probably see us, good old Arsene, with his checkbook out, going, okay, Kondogbia is worth 30 million, Laporte's worth 7 million. Yeah, we'll go with him. So I think he would fit the bill. But it could be another William Carvalho, and we all know how that ended in the summer, don't we? We'll move this on though, and great point, by the way, Geoff. That's a good name to throw out there. Holic, I hope you've sort of calmed your nerves, and I hope you got somewhere very comfortable, because I'm going to ask you a beautiful question, and Danny and Geoff, you're not safe from this one either.
I've been waiting for this.
If we look at this time last season, after a fairly to say it was a dreadful start at home to Villa, things went from strength to strength. We brought in the marquee signing, and smiles started to return to the Emirates, and we were flying high at the top of the league. This season, not quite so good. Do you think, in your opinion, that this current team has gone backwards? Do you think it's level with the team of last year and the league has changed? Or a bit of both, or do you have a completely different view?
I have a view that our perception of what's going on at the moment is tainted by the fact that you're as good as your last result, and our last two results are absolutely dreadful. I think that I've touched on in the blog over the course of the season the fact that during the calendar year of 2013, when we were the best team in the land, and what shame the title isn't decided over calendar years instead of seasons, the midfield was what drove us. Even up until the point that Aaron Ramsey and Mesut Ozil and Theo Walcott went missing at the same time at the turn of the year, I thought our midfield would blow anybody away. And I'm looking at the start of this season, the first 11 league games or whatever it is. We haven't yet produced one performance where the midfield has performed as well as it did at its best last season, and it produced quite regularly last season. So for me, I don't want to say the words go backwards because it will get climbed on, but we have for that reason, and yet the players are there to correct that.
Yeah, I think that's a very fair point. Danny, I'll come to you next on the pretty much the same question. Do you think we've gone backwards? Arguably, we replaced our right back like for like. We sold an experienced defender and brought in an inexperienced defender. I think it's fair to say we've upgraded in the striking department, but do you think as a whole we've gone backwards?
Oh, definitely. I've said a couple of pods ago that I would rather have got, as much as I love Sanchez and I love Ozil, what they can do, that money could have been much better spent on, between them, that's best part of 80 million quid, and plus the wages those two are earning would pay you the wages of 3 or 4 other players. I'd much rather have rebuilt the squad in other places with getting another couple of central defenders, getting another decent striker up to play up front who's going to score goals. Welbeck has been doing really well, and I was really pleased to see against Swansea that a player who is looking for goals had the sense to pass the ball across the goal to Sanchez, who was in a better position, and that just shows the quality and the mentality of Welbeck, which I'm really happy with. But we could still do with more people up front, more people in every position. I think going and spending all that money on those two players was a little bit of a luxury that is seeming now that we didn't really have. You want about comparing this season to last season. At this point last season, the 10th of November 2013, we were 2 points clear at the top of the league, and we had played 8, drawn 1 and lost 2. And this season we've also lost 2, but we're down in 6th place with 17 points. So we've lost the same number of games, but we're in just a completely different position. It's just weird how things will conspire for 2 seasons to be exactly the same number of losses, same number of games, but then the season to be completely falling apart. But there again, Chelsea this point last season had 21 points. Now they got 29. And I think there's just it's just bad luck. I know nobody can see. I mean, hindsight, as we all say, is a wonderful thing, and that we say we should have spent this, should have done that. I don't think we were in any position to waste all of that money, not waste, to spend all of that money on luxury players when so many other departments of the positions of the squad needed seeing to.
Yeah, I think
That's with hindsight, though.
Yeah, well, absolutely. It's easy to say, isn't it? I think you make a great point. I think we are competing against the Chelsea side that, as much as again I'm going to have to wipe the vomit from my face. I think I think their fans are already singing "We've won the league," and it's hard to disagree.
I mean, that just brings up a question actually that someone has made sent in, which is very relevant to what we're talking about now. I'm just going to look through it. No, that's not that one. No. Here we go. From The Goon. Wenger is quoted as giving up on the league in November! For someone who for years preaches strong mentality to this, is it the end of the game for him? I think that's quite relevant. It is. I mean, how can you say as a manager, we've given up in November?
It's a very good question. I'll actually throw that to Geoff. And Geoff, if I can add a sub-question to that from one of our other listeners, which is on a very similar lines. Would you rather play it safe with what we've got, i.e. Wenger and finishing fourth every year, or would you sort of potentially risk dropping out of the top four and putting all our eggs in one basket to try and go above ourselves, so to speak?
Oh gosh, I didn't want that question.
Good luck with that one. Sorry.
I sure as hell don't.
No, thank you for that, Holic. So the first one is really a question about Arsene throwing in the towel. I think we're 12 points out. I think realistically, we've all kind of come to the conclusion that we probably won't challenge for the title this year. We'll still think we'll be a top four team. And it does feel like we're treading water a little bit. But I think that there's some sort of baffling things that have happened. This shift in the way we've played, from defensive back to offensive. And I think we've talked a little bit about that 2013 calendar year where we were quite content to close up shop, to let teams sort of have those pot shots from outside of the area, sort of hold them by the throat, if you will, and then counterattack and kill teams. I mean, I can remember we were that second half team where we would score in the 70th, 80th, 90th minute, and it was sort of a normal thing. And then we've shifted to more of an attacking style, a little bit more open at the back. So I look at our team, and I think that's what's really frustrating because we clearly have the players to be successful. I don't think from a playing perspective we've gone backwards at all. Maybe a numbers game, and then with the benefit of hindsight, we've had some injuries that have really hurt us, I think. But I don't think that term of going backwards from a playing staff is correct. I do think the way we're going about games is not up to par. And so I think that's been our problem this year, and I think that's really what causes a lot of frustration amongst us fans, is that we can see that there are things we could be doing better on the pitch, and we don't seem to be addressing them, or they don't seem to be changing. Now that said, still pretty early days in the season. 2 losses, a bunch of ties. We can turn this around, and I think we should. But yeah, I think I've cleverly avoided answering that question somehow. So hit me with your second part or one more time here, and let's see if I can address it.
Yeah, the second question, I'll just find it again. It was from Abdul Ahad Jawed. I hope I pronounced that
Will you
right.
stop doing that? His name's Gary or Trevor. Stop pronouncing names first Hollandfruden and now this. You're sickening me.
Okay,
Stop it.
Our next question is from Trev. So that was on our Facebook page, so thank you, Abdul. He was just saying, just sort of in regards to the manager and the situation we're in, would you rather play it safe and keep things as they are? So obviously that includes Arsene staying as he is, the transfer policy staying as it is, the way we're playing as it is. At least we're guaranteeing top 4. Is that what we should be aiming at, or should we risk it and potentially sort of not so much do a Leeds, but should we throw everything at it money-wise and try and sort of buy our way to success?
No, well, there's multiple parts in that question. I can't answer that one. It was the first part that was throwing me off. Cleverly, he has not said when. So when do we do that? Do we do that mid-season, which I think some people would be okay with? Do we do it in the summer, or we do it eventually when Arsene decides to leave on his own terms? We can't do that now. That's my answer. I think we could review it in the summer. But I don't see us having to spend another 200 million pounds to compete. We're very close. We have a top quality squad. They are absolutely underperforming, and they're not doing the basics right, and they seem to be lacking some confidence. We need to figure that out. And I hinted on this earlier when I was talking about Arsene Wenger. I do think we need to freshen it up. I think it's time for some new ideas, and I don't think that there's as much risk as people think is there. I think if you can find a manager who sort of has the right qualities to take over Arsenal, and can get us focused on doing the basics right, I think we can build from that. But it's not something I want to see us trying to do next week or in January or even in March. This needs to be carefully done. It needs to be done with class. We're a classy team. We're known for that. We need to handle everything right, and Arsene Wenger deserves to go on his terms.
Yeah, I think that's well said, very well said, and people forget just how much he's done. So whilst we've got to live in the current world, we can't forget our past either. So, and let's also not forget that it hasn't. I don't think it's been mentioned anywhere. Well, I'm sure it has, but I haven't seen it. November, we do have certain issues with November, don't we? So maybe it's just the curse of November. Maybe that's why we've thrown away a 3-goal lead and lost to Swansea. Maybe that's what it is. So let's just try and pretend that our next couple of games are in December and we'll be all right. We'll move things on then. We've got sort of our next section. We've got some listeners' questions, and we'll Danny, if you can do the Twitter questions, and I'll do some from Facebook if that's cool with you.
Right.
We'll start with you.
And we both actually picked out 2 questions from Twitter that we both had picked to put on our list of questions, and which means you're quite good questions. So, IK_S Gunner says, "Who is Wenger's best signing in the last 10 years?" So I'll let you 3 think about that as I answer it, and I would say Sanchez. There you go.
Nice and easy.
Yeah, because 8 goals in 10 games, in 10 Premier League games, and 2 or 3 assists, and single-handedly, what was that stat? While the others are thinking, Kris, I can hear their brains turning over. What's that stat about where Arsenal would be? It's stupid, because we'd have someone else playing in his position. But they said one of the papers said where Arsenal would be without Sanchez's goals. Was it 19th or something?
17th, I believe.
But do they take into consideration that somebody else would be playing in that position, or do they mean if he got sent off in the first minute of every game?
Yeah,
because otherwise it's completely fucking meaningless.
Where would Chelsea be without Fabregas and Costa?
Where would Chelsea and Man City be without the dirty oil money?
Absolutely.
In League One, where they belong.
Exactly. Holic, have you got a name for us?
Oh, you just threw me actually with that proviso of the last 10 years. Because I was prepared. I kind of read who was the Wenger's best signing, and I had 2 of them. But
you can say Bentner if you want.
2004.
He would. Bentner would say Bentner.
Bit too early for Sanchez, I think. If you're talking about the last 10 years,
I'm being optimistic.
Oh Jesus! No, yeah, I know. Obviously he's a class.
He went on to break Henry's record, didn't you know? And O'Leary's.
Oh God! Quick! Last 10 years, it has got to be Theo Walcott.
All right.
That's different. Very different to what I would have expected.
If you're gonna be silly about it, I didn't realise. I love Theo. He's one of the few players at the club that I genuinely want to see stay at the club for the rest of his life. Him and Wilshere and Ramsey and Gibbs. I just love the lot of them. Geoff, have you got one?
Yeah, I got a couple. It's interesting though that
of course you've got a couple because you don't play by the rules, do you? No.
It's interesting that it's easier to pick out the worst signings than it is the best, isn't it?
Oh God, yeah, there's a long list of those.
Awful.
Good God.
I sport between Ramsey and the guy who I'm actually going to say I'm going to go with a different choice just to change it up and say Koscielny. And you know he's had some mistakes down the years, so let's not beat up on him. But he's actually scored some absolutely critical goals for us in run-ins to Champions League spots. And then the fact that he was nobody'd ever heard of him. He'd had that one season at Lorient. I think he was at Le Mans before then. Chris, you would know this.
Yeah.
But the fact that he was sort of plucked from obscurity, and he really is a fantastic defender. I really like him, and like I said, he's had those key goals, memorable for the 1-1 in Newcastle a couple seasons ago, which was 1-0. Yeah, I'm gonna go with Kojoli.
You know, he's 29 now.
Better and better.
Yeah,
he's getting on a bit. He's 29. I didn't realise he's so old, and he spent a season with Giroud at Tours as well. Tours.
Yeah, that was who he was with in Ligue 2 before he came. But yeah, you're right. Le Mans is not far away.
And for those who don't speak fluent French like me, that's League 2. Have you got one, Chris?
League Ducks. Actually, funnily enough, Holic.
You're not going to say Theo as well, are you?
No. I was just going to say that he's exactly right when you said 10 years. That's what's thrown me, because my immediate thought was I wouldn't have said Thierry Henry just because I know everyone else would have gone, but I would have said either Freddie Ljungberg or Robert Pires. But obviously that's outside of the 10-year gap. So,
in the parameters, come on.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a difficult one.
Get your thinking scrunchy on.
Yeah. I mean, it's difficult. It's difficult to argue with Aaron Ramsey just because of how much the lad could still achieve, and if you're looking at sort of long-termism and how much he could achieve at this level. Okay, yeah, he's not having, his best season, shall we say, and he's hit a bit of a patch of form that's been indifferent. But if you look at how much we paid for him, the fact that we managed to take him from under the noses of Man United, which was obviously, very good, to be fair, because he was halfway to signing for them. I'll stick with Ramsey. There's probably other contenders, but I think as the whole package, this guy
can I break the rules and change my mind?
Yeah, go on. But we're all for all.
Oh, we all love Theo. Are you sure?
You're not going to say it about
I'm just thinking of players that have been bought but now that I've got this 10 years in my mind, I'm taken back to a game when we've been talking about Arsene Wenger tonight, and I think there was a match where Arsene Wenger could very easily have been hounded out of his job when we're 2-0 down at home at Tottenham Hotspur, and some beady-haired fella at right back came galloping up the field, said, "I'm not having any of this," smashed a fucking header into the back of the net and set up that 5-2. And Bakary Sagna did that year in, year out. He was just absolute class. So yeah, I'd like to change my mind. Bakary Sagna.
Currently warming the bench at Man City along with half of the rest of our reserves.
He deserves to be warming the bench at Manchester City.
I think he'll get there.
He probably got more stick than he probably should have done. There was a brilliant piece of audio. I don't know if any of you fellas watched the Man City QPR game the other week on Sky, but I managed to isolate the audio clip from when I was watching live. And there's a part where Sagna goes into the advertising hoardings, and obviously the microphones are quite close up, and you can clearly hear somebody from the crowd go, "Get up, Sagna! What are you doing? How much money you want? Get up, you Nancy!" I thought that was absolutely brilliant. That kind of made me chuckle when I thought of Sagna. But yeah, I mean, it's hard to argue. This is a guy that came from Auxerre, I believe, for about 4.
Came back from 2 broken legs.
Exactly, yeah. I think people are very quick to forget players once they're sold. I mean, rightly so in cases like Nasri. But no, we'll allow you a rule break. I've got a good question, actually, that links quite nicely to transfers. This is kind of the reverse way of looking at it, and I'll come to you first on this one, Geoff. Elias Blom-Hole. They get better, these Facebook names, I swear. He'd like to ask if we've gone over our targets coming in for January, but who should be sold ASAP in January, if anyone?
No, I think we're looking at a bare bones squad right now, especially with injuries. I don't think we should be looking to sell. Keep the squad intact. That's the way I would look at it. If there's guys that need to leave the squad, it should happen in the summer. I know Podolski's been agitating. There were the quotes in the news from Rosicky saying he hasn't been playing much. He's not sure why. We need those players. A long season ahead with Champions League, FA Cup coming. We need everybody we can hold on to right now that's settled in the squad.
Yeah, there's nobody left to sell, is there?
No, there isn't.
Danny, do you have anybody you'd particularly like to see heading for the exit door?
We need a mass clear out. As long as we can replace them. Flamini needs to go. I think Arteta needs to go. Podolski needs to go, although I love Podolski, but he is 29, and if we don't hurry up and sell him, he's going to end up going on a free. I think maybe Rosicky might need to go, because this season he has played 22 minutes in the Premier League. For a player of his skill, that is an absolute bloody insult. Sonogo needs to go. Joel Campbell needs to go. Looks like he's off to Inter, maybe off on loan to Inter Milan. I think Coquelin, who we've just loaned out to some championship side, he needs to go. And probably Diaby, just constantly earning money and doing nothing. They all need to go. But Wenger just seems to have them round for tea every day, and they're all these chums. He doesn't want any of them to go. Need to clear out all of that lot, and then don't go. What Wenger will probably then go and do is spend £100 million on Messi, and we go, actually, no, we've only got 8 squad players. That's the kind of stupid thing I'd expect to happen right now. But we need to get rid of those players and get in younger. I'd go British players for all of them, pay a little bit more, but then they would all know what it means to the club to try. Is there that many professional players that are Arsenal fans? I'm surprised it's got to be. That's what first thing I'd ask them. Who do you support? If they say anything other than Arsenal, no, get out. You're not signing.
So basically, bring back Jenkinson. Then
Completely unrealistic answer. But at least it's interesting.
Holic, have you got anyone you'd particularly like to see the back of?
Hang on, you know me. I'm not going to be critical of individuals at all, but if it's going to be useful, then it has to be players who are earning good money that could be paid to someone else, or players who could attract a good fee. Well, those players we actually do want to keep. Geoff is absolutely right. The players who you might be prepared to see let go would be maybe those who haven't made the impression that you thought that you wanted them to. So, Sonogo brings no value, but it doesn't free up much. Joel Campbell's the interesting one, and is he going to go somewhere? I think he might, but again, you're not getting big money, you're not freeing up big wages, so it's a real tough one.
Yeah, I agree. I think the only name I'd probably add to that list, I'd like to see Gnabry go on loan, because I think he needs football, and I think I'm worried about Gnabry, because I think he's another one of these young players that's got an awful lot of talent, but we could ruin him by putting too much pressure on him to perform, because we've got no one else, and I'm worried. I think with Theo Walcott returning to fitness, if Podolski and Joel Campbell aren't getting games, I just can't see where Gnabry's going to get games. So I'd like to see him go on loan, either sort of to another Premier League side, much the same way that Jack Wilshere did at Bolton. I think he came back 4 times the player he left as. So I'd like to see him go on loan. And indeed, like as you guys have said, I don't think we can really look at getting anyone out until we've got a full squad that's fit again. And as Arsenal fans, we all know that's going to be quite a long way away. So let's not worry too much. Danny, have you got another question from Twitter there?
Yes, another one from Akib. Says Monreal playing centre-back because as second-choice left-back he wouldn't get a game if Gibbs is fit. And I was thinking, that's the question you picked out as well. I thought, what a stupid bloody question. He's playing centre-back because we've got nobody else. And I thought, actually, Keeb isn't going to say it like that. What he probably means is he playing at centre-back because he needs to get games and we're paying him so much money and he's on wages and he costs so much money to buy, rather than playing Chambers there and playing Bellerin at right-back. I think that's more of what he means. And I think, yeah, he's got a point. First of all, paying £8.5 million for Monreal was yet another massive clusterfuck by Wenger and massively overplayed for what I think is a player that we didn't need, whereas we could have bought someone for a couple of £1 million from maybe the Championship who would have got as many games as Monreal, and Monreal playing at centre-back is not working. He'd only played 2 games at centre-back in his entire life. What do you think? Oh, Geoff.
Monreal, centre-back. We talked about this on the radio show, I don't know, about a month ago. For me, he just doesn't have the physical presence to play there, and we saw that in the game on the weekend.
But he fell over.
Yeah, he fell
doing
over.
His job.
But that's not his fault. I mean, you can't say to a dolphin, why can't you walk? Right?
Well, I'm going to blame him. I don't care if it's his fault. He's to be blamed.
It's a brilliant analogy.
I mean, he's been playing there, right? He reads the game well. He can pass the ball. He seems to get himself in pretty decent positions. But at the end of the day, when you're battling a much bigger forward than yourself, he's going to get brushed off the ball, like we've seen, and we've seen it in other games as well. So it's an interesting point you bring up around appearances and playing him in there, and don't forget when he did come in, Gibbs had that pretty serious injury towards the end of the transfer market. It was a January window, so maybe we overpaid. But at the time, he was a Spanish international, which was a big deal at that point. It wasn't the Spain team we see today that went out 3-0 from the World Cup. So, it's a strange one for me. I think with the benefit of hindsight, which seems to be a theme today in today's podcast, you have to look back at the summer and say, if we know we're going to be short in the center back position, which we kind of knew, there was a lot of people calling for that. Why do we let Jenkinson go? Now we've all agreed that we thought a loan would do him well, but on the same side of things, if you look at it, he could be our backup right back at the moment, and then you could have Chambers as a backup center back, and that doesn't cost us money. Other than the wages that we're paying Jenkinson, which we're probably subsidizing at West Ham already.
I think we get the option to call him back in January.
I've heard that, and I've heard that no, it's definitely a season long. But it's hard to argue that if you look at the Swansea game, the one thing Jenkinson does well is he covers the wing well, and our fullbacks have been pushing up, which I'm assuming is by instruction. And he's very fast. And Montero had the beating of Chambers on the weekend because of his pace. So it's hard to argue that he couldn't have done a job there for me. So, and those are my sort of thoughts on the defense.
Who else?
Devil's advocate view.
Go on in.
Devil's advocate. If you're talking about Monreal and then you go back to beyond the last two games, you got to start talking about Anderlecht away. And actually, a lot of people were talking about how well Monreal played there. Yeah. But I take the point that against Big Bully Boy, it was Anderlecht, against Big Bully Boy centre forwards, no, he's absolutely not the man. The interesting thing is whether he's worth a start at left back because of Kieran Gibbs. A, is injury prone. B, there are still question marks about whether he's the real deal. I don't want to go too far. I don't like criticising players, but I don't think you could slide a fag paper between Monreal and Gibbs right now as a left back.
Yeah, I agree. I think just to chuck in my 2 pence worth, I think the manager has changed his views on blooding players at certain times. If you think back to the Danny, I know we mentioned this in the radio show last week. If you think back to when Kieran Gibbs was first coming through, we played that awful night of coloured paper on the seats at the Emirates when we went down 3-0 to Man United in the Champions League, and Kieran Gibbs slipped in that game and it cost us the opening goal in sort of 2 or 3 minutes to Ronaldo, if I remember rightly. And a lot of people criticising him for that and said, he's not good enough, and why are we playing him, why is he in so early, he's not ready. So I think almost the manager has gone almost full circle, and if you look at someone like Hector Bellerin, who granted is probably better going forward than he is defensively, the only way he's going to learn is by getting games, and Kieran Gibbs has become a much better left back through playing games as he would have done if he hadn't, as did Ashley Cole when he was at the club. So you kind of got to go one way or the other, and I'm kind of with Holic on that. I think Monreal's got a lot of ability, and I think he's actually a very very good left back. You don't get into the Spanish national side if you're not a very talented player. And I think that the difference is, speaking as a very low level footballer myself, I'm a right back by trade when I'm not managing, and to make the transition, I played centre back twice last year. It's a completely different position. You have to know where your line is. You have to know who you're marking. Your natural instinct is to drift to the position that you're naturally playing in. So you will drift from side to side. And I think where Bakary Sagna, I think we were able to get away with it with Bakary Sagna because he's such a physical player. And people forget how good in the air Bakary Sagna was. Our goal kicks were pretty much always, the opposition goal kicks, were pretty much always won by Mertesacker or Sagna last year. And we lost that. Monreal's strength is not in the air, and when you're playing in European games such as Anderlecht, I think you can get away with it because clubs play a very different style in European football. At Premier League level, managers are watching us week in, week out, and you can bet your bottom dollar that Butthead at Man United will be sitting there rubbing his hands together thinking, well, if we play he who shall not be named against him, or we put Di Maria sort of cutting in and going against Mertesacker's pace or Monreal's pace, we're going to get a lot of joy. So it's a hell of a risk to put Bellerin in, but I completely agree with Geoff. I would have kept Jenkinson as your cover at right back, and I would have blooded Chambers at centre back. But it's clear that Arsene thinks otherwise.
Well, there you go then. Yeah.
Should we go to another question from Facebook?
Go on then.
Okay, this is a good one from Anders Bernhall. That's a slightly easier one. Do you think we actually have a plan for how we play or go into a game to keep the lead, but the players ignore it and attack as usual? Or do you think we have a plan and Wenger leaves it to the players to sort out? Which one of these options is worse? Danny, you can have a go on that one.
Oh, to try and move this along a bit, I think leaving it to the players to make their own minds. Like, he's the manager, he should make all the decisions.
Fair shout, Holic.
What a great question. I kind of covered it in my blog after the match last week when I said if it was the manager who didn't address it at half-time, it's his fault. If the players went gung-ho in the second half, it's theirs. But the crucial point of it is the bit in the question where he says, do you think? Well, we can think what we like. We don't know what happened, do we?
No, absolutely. Geoff, you got anything to add to that one, mate?
Oh, nothing to add to that. I mean, it's the age-old question of where the tactics live. Is it in the players or in the manager who's deploying them? I don't know. And that whole do you think or if, it's hard to say. I don't think I'd add anything to what the fellows.
It's a good question, but it can't be answered.
No, it's very good. I'd like to give a quick nod to one of the questions I'm not actually going to ask because we've kind of covered it, Danny, when you mentioned about playing Jack and Rambo in the centre and freeing up Ozil in the number 10 role. Nikolai Teleso, oh God, so bad at these names. Sorry, Nikolai. He asked a very similar question on Facebook, so a quick nod to you. I've just got two more from Facebook. One is probably quite a quick one as well. Robert Mangoni says, what are the biggest positives so far this season? And moving forward, fuck the negatives. I like that. So if I'll go to each of you. If you could give me one positive from this season, we'll go reverse. We'll start from Geoff.
Let's start with the players that he's brought in. Alexis Sanchez has been fantastic this season, and I hope he continues on. You guys know this about me, though, that what I have said about Sanchez is coming from the Spanish league where they have a winter break, and he is all out style. He is going 110% every game, and he remains committed. I hope that he can maintain this because we're gonna need him come March, April, and May. So hopefully that's been an absolute bright spot. I think we beat up on young Callum Chambers a little bit, not too much. I think he's been a bright spot as well. I think he's going to be one of those signings that every season is going to get better. Not unlike when we were talking about Koscielny. I think. When we look back at this period in 10 or 15 years, I think he's going to be a really bright spot for Arsenal, and I think he's got a long career for us. So these players that have come in, I think, have been an absolute bright spot. Beyond that, we've had a lot of draws. We could be actually a lot further behind with the way we've been playing. It sounds funny. A lot of people are down on our form, and I agree. I think we could be doing better, but we also could be doing a lot worse. I think, Danny, you always say it's easier to turn a draw into a win. I think once we get a couple wins under our belt, and we're still waiting for a bit of sustained form here, but once that happens, we get maybe a big win that we're waiting for. Once we click, get a bit of confidence and some players back, I think we're going to be okay.
Jenkinson has just scored for the under-21s.
How bizarre.
His ears were burning.
1-0.
Super Tuber Akpom got two for the under, what is it, under-19s yesterday?
He could score 50 goals for them and Wenger would still not give him a go.
Did you see who he was playing, though? Did you see who they were playing?
No.
Canada.
It was Canada.
The Canadian-ish. Oh.
Expect him to get 10
hey. Oh, I was talking about Canada. I was watching. I don't watch not South Park. What's the other one? Family Guy, Family Man. And there was the episode where the baby wants the dog to take him to the North Pole, and then they go through Canada land, and then they see a Canadian, and then he says, "Take my skidoo and take all my money and take my leg too." And so they take his leg and his money, and they go, "That's what Canadians do. They just give everything, and they're nice." And he went, "Sorry, eh?"
Sorry, eh?
I actually recorded that because it's so funny. I was going to film it and put it in the WhatsApp group. I thought I don't want Geoff getting angry and smashing the gaff up.
Oh no, I would apologise.
Just say sorry. Colin, you got any positives?
I thought I was the one who was going to railroad this discussion. No way. The only one he didn't cover, and you've got to agree with Alexis, and I do until the last couple of weeks agree with Callum Chambers, and I do agree that he's going to, in X years' time, we're going to look back at him as a great signing. Mention for Danny Welbeck, because I think the work rate that he puts in kind of doesn't get noticed as much because of what Alexis is doing, but we've got a centre forward who defends from the front. I like him a lot, and I think Giroud's going to have a problem getting back into the side.
I agree. Danny, have you got anything to add to that?
Oh, the positive for me is the £3 million that Stan Kroenke took in advisory fees, because he's worth every single penny. Bless his socks if he's listening.
Thank you for that.
Please don't go off for a long walk off of a short pier.
I will just chuck one more in. I think he's been forgotten because he got Croc so early, but I think Debussy was a fantastic signing, and I think he will prove to be every bit as good as Sagna in that position. And I'm a big fan. I liked him at Lille. I liked him at Newcastle. And I think he was an excellent bit of business. And I think some of our defensive issues would probably not have been quite as severe as they are had he stayed fit or not been unlucky. So
another good player going forward.
Yes, yeah, absolutely, yeah. I think he's crossing very good as well, which, bless him, Bakary, it wasn't his strong point, was it?
Like I said last night when we were talking to the blokes who wrote the Arsenal shirt book, you've worn your Debussy shirt more than he has.
Yeah, and I haven't put it on yet, so that says it all, doesn't it?
And do you want a question from Twitter?
Yeah, and then I've got one more on Facebook, which is probably for Geoff. So.
You've done 2 Facebooks in a row. That's not how it works. Look at you. You're hosting and you're breaking, changing all the rules.
I'm sorry.
You've gone all Pol Pot on us. Isn't it not having it? You old Cum Jong Wing Wong or whatever his name was. You've gone wrong. And
I have a question from the dog and duck. When am I going to get down there tonight?
That's a very good point.
Jeez, yeah, we've been going on. Carl on Twitter says, this is 2 parts I'll put into one. What new lows must Arsenal sink to before the board takes action? And are we sticking with Arsenal because there is simply nobody else out there to take over? Mr. Holic.
Oh, that's evil.
It is.
Absolutely evil.
It's good though.
They're sticking with the man because as of yet, and I understand the arguments, but as of yet, there is no reason to offload him because we're still in November. There is still a chance that this season could yet yield something a little bit better than last. I grant you it doesn't look that rosy at the moment. But
better than last. We won the FA Cup last year. That's the best we've done in a decade.
12, no, except that when you were talking earlier about him conceding the league,
Yeah.
he concedes it in the context of he's in a hostile press conference, but when he gets back to Colney, I can tell you he's not conceded the league to the players. The league is going to be won between January and May. Unfortunately, our record last year suggests that we're not going to get into there, but if you look back the year before that, from January to May, we were outstanding. We didn't think we were going to get top 4 at Christmas. Was it 2012? I'm trying to forget the mental mathematics, but the season before last, we thought we wouldn't make top 4. We overhauled Tottenham's 10 points. We've just talked about Bakary Sagna's goal. This season could go the same way until the man has majorly and utterly made a mess of it. It's too early. Sorry, for me.
Oh, we've got till December then. Geoff, what do you think?
It is way too early, and it's just not going to happen. But to answer your question, in terms of lows, how low do we have to get? We need to stop making money. I mean, that's what it's going to come down to. Is if for some reason everyone stops supporting the club, then I think that's when the board's going to notice. But
poison the well.
Yeah, it's not going to happen. It's exactly, Holic. So, and that's all I would really add to that is that he's not going to go right now. And I think the sooner we kind of get through that, the better. We just get behind the team and let's get to May and be in a good position.
I think if anything, the more the fans get pissed off and the more the regulars stop going, the more the irregulars will turn up and go to the club shop and, like everyone says, spend 150 quid in there. So the more we get pissed off and stop going, the more the owner likes it. Yeah, Kris, what do you think?
I was going to say, I didn't spend anywhere near that amount when I was up last week, did I, Danny?
No.
I don't think I've got much to add, to be honest, but I would like to just sort of steer that question. It's a very similar question to the last one I've got on Facebook, so I'll steer it Geoff's way because he's got quite an interesting story briefly to tell us. This is from Josh or Joshua Kennedy. I don't know whether you prefer Joshua, so I'll call you Josh. Should we encourage the club to let Usmanov take over with the money with the money turned over by the club? We could have spent a lot more than City, PSG, and Chelsea ever did, and still make FFP rules. We could then just buy everyone we need. Clearly, we can't compete. We could also buy Spurs and get them relegated where they belong. Geoff, you've got an interesting story about our American owner. Can you share that with the listeners?
Yeah, absolutely. That was quite the setup, Kris.
It was, wasn't it?
Well played, sir. Well played.
Thank you.
You know, there's an anecdotal story here that I maybe share another time about the Rapids. And journalists and things that haven't gone well there. But what I really want to get to, and a lot of people probably don't know this, is that the Colorado Rapids have had probably 4 seasons now since they won the MLS Cup. I think they did it in 2010, and they're owned by Stan Kroenke. So there's the Arsenal connection. Kroenke Sports Entertainment owns the Rapids, and they've had bad season after bad season, and it's been false dawn after false dawn, a lot of groundhog seasons for them where they seem to get a playing style or a coherent style on the field, and then it hasn't really worked out for them, and the fans are basically have had enough. And so I bet you guys didn't know this, but they actually flew a plane over the ground in September that said Hinchy and KSE out, which Hinchy is the sort of the equivalent of sort of a Stan Gazidis there, or Ivan Gazidis, and then KSE is Kroenke Sports Entertainment, which seems like a sort of a Manchester United thing to do. But their biggest complaint is that, and leveled towards Kroenke, is that he's done nothing for their team. He's done nothing. He hasn't put anything in, and they've sort of suffered after winning a major trophy. They haven't gone anywhere with it, and when you look at that, it sounds familiar, doesn't it? A little bit. So it's an interesting question. I'm not sure I'm in favor of Usmanov coming in and saving the day either, because you have to deal with financial fair play. It's not like he's going to come in and give us hundreds of millions of pounds and we'll get away scot-free. So we have to be realistic about that. But, the arguments around Kroenke not really putting something into the club, I think are fair and valid. And I think our friends in Colorado are feeling that.
Can I out-fact you there, Mr. Geoff?
You're going to hit me.
Gary Smith, manager of Colorado Rapids when they won said 2010 MLS Cup, was a youth player at Arsenal in the early 80s. And then he come back from Colorado, went to the mighty Stevenage and got the sack.
We actually had a player signed for them in March. Was it Galindo? I think it was
Samuel Galindo, yeah.
Samuel Galindo,
I think that's him. Yeah, I think he actually played a few games with them, and then nobody really knows what happened to him.
He was the Bolivian superstar, wasn't he? Or supposedly, I think he's from the same school as Wellington Silva, if you remember him. Still technically an Arsenal player. And I did laugh at.
Last seen doing a paper round.
Our good friend Mr. Arsblog tweeted a thing for Arsblog News a couple of weeks ago saying about Wellington now qualifies for a passport, and he very very tongue-in-cheek sort of wrote the article saying, does anyone actually give a shit? I don't think anyone even knew he's still with us, so I can't see him going anywhere, unfortunately.
Oh dear. Did you answer that question, Mr. Carpenter?
Yeah, nothing really to add to that, really. I think it's very very difficult because oh yeah, so we did. Sorry, I'll come back to that.
What's happening? What's occurring? What have I missed? Have we won it?
I'll cover that in a second.
Oh, I'm excited!
I think we've lost my train of thought. I think with our owner, I think it's very difficult because I know a lot of people were very cheesed off, to put it politely, about Ivan Gazidis winning the CEO of the Year award and whatnot. At the end of the day, I think if you look at what he's done for us, he has done a hell of a job with the commercial side of things, and I'd like to know how much of a role Tom Fox put in before he went off to Villa, in fairness. But I think Gazidis is doing really what he's paid to do. The sort of the worry is what Silent Stan is doing or planning to do or not.
Hurry up! We've got news! Hurry up! I can't hold it in!
I'll draw a line under this when
I'm holding it in!
I'm going to be happy, but I believe, Danny...
I'm holding it in!
I think if anyone should break this news, it should be you, Danny, as a co-founder of this delightful parish. Would you like to give the listeners some news?
I've just ordered pizza and got free chips. Oh no, we won the award, best podcast. We're the winners! Woohoo!
See, all you needed to do was call me up, and there it was, nailed.
There you go.
Swung it. Our very own Jay. Oh, and Geoff's put a little WhatsApp picture of his big smiley cheesy face. We are actual winners. Here we go. 2 minutes ago from the Football Blog Awards. Fans' Choice Best Football Podcast. A Bergkamp Wonderland winner 2014. Oh, that $2 billion we spent was worth every penny. Thank you very much to everyone who voted for us and everyone who didn't vote for us. No doubt Arsenal will be on the phone tomorrow wanting to steal the trophy like they stole the one from Pinebury Corner.
Well done, fellas. Absolutely chuffed.
Oh, thank you very much. Any news on how the rest of the Arsenal people got on? Because they had quite a few, didn't we?
I'm just looking through the list now, so I'll inform you as we go along. I'm just looking down. I can't see anything else.
Well, I hope they do win.
The Liver Bird won a certain award as well. So
what did they win? They're a podcast, aren't they?
No, it's a blogger. The Liver Bird. I believe A.F.C. Kirsty, best female football blog chosen by the fans.
Well, next year I think Geoff and the rest of our ABW bloggers may well be up for one of the awards because we've only just started on the blogging thing. We're going to take the world by storm, aren't we, Geoff?
Well, that's a beautiful segue, Danny. Actually.
Oh, you know me, I'm fucking world class. I'll be off to Man City in the morning.
Just from my point of view, and Danny, you'll go all red here, I'm sure. But I think Geoff, particularly, you'll join me in saying that it's a lot of what we do on this podcast. We obviously like to thank everyone that voted, but Danny and Gimli have done a hell of a job putting this together, and some of the guests we've had just literally recently of Matt Lucas and Perry Groves is fantastic, and I think Danny in particular being live now and Gimli not being live deserve a huge amount of credit for putting this together, so well done to you guys.
Oh, cheers very much. Well, again, without you lot voting for it, we wouldn't have got it.
No, absolutely.
So all those fake accounts we set up, 200,000 we set up.
If I can take the mouth from around
Oi, easy tiger.
Water bottle.
Yeah, water bottle, that's the one. Yeah, absolutely. We'll start to wrap things up then. We'll go into a couple of plugs and we'll do a couple of shout outs. Geoff, I'm going to throw to you again because if you'd just like to bring us up to date with how ABW is changing things and what we've got planned for blogs in the coming weeks as chief blogger.
Thanks, Kris. You know how I feel about that title, but okay. So I took over from Danny probably a couple weeks ago in terms of posting the blogs on the site. I'm a semi-regular on there. I think I post probably every couple weeks. We don't post a lot. And the first thing that I did was make sure we've got a couple guys that had written a couple blogs for us in Simon Collings and Jake Arsenal. Is we signed them up to long-term contracts on undisclosed fees to be regular columnists for us. So I'm really, really, really pleased to have those two guys aboard. Both of them write a heck of a lot more than I do. Simon, who is at SR_Collings, COLLINGS, and he's a reporter for Haters Reporting Network in London. So he actually goes to a lot of league games. He goes to a lot of Premier League games, and he covers a lot of different teams, but he's an Arsenal fan. I'm really pleased to have him on board. Jake, who is at Jake Arsenal 1, so JakeArsenal 1, the number 1, is Australian. He has his own blog called The Loaded Cannon, which you can link to in his profile if you go on Twitter and give him a follow. Really good guy, really passionate about Arsenal, and the two of them together, along with me, we all have different views as to how the club should move forward, and I think that that's the right balance to have when you're blogging. So we're going to work together to bring collaborative blogs, and I'll touch on that in a second, as well as provide individual blogs. We don't do match reports, we don't do previews. And we're not going to do sort of these abusive pieces. That's just not the way we are. We do this for fun and enjoyment and out of our support for Arsenal. So the three of us are going to work hard to bring blogs and complement this award-winning world's best podcast So that's our mandate, to bring you guys, the listeners, something interesting to read, and digest. Right now, if you're curious, we are collaborating. It's not something I've seen from a lot of different blogging sites, and it came about from our different views as to who would make a good successor for Arsene Wenger potentially. It's just an interesting philosophical debate, because obviously I don't think the great man's going to go anytime soon. And so what we did is we each took a potential manager and we wrote a blog about it. So the three of us have done that. My piece went up earlier this week. Simon's went up this morning. So mine was on Frank de Boer. His was on Martinez. Next up, we'll have Jake. He's gonna write about promoting from within at the club. And then we're really fortunate that we got Kris, our very own Kris, who's hosting tonight. We're tapping into his European football knowledge. He's going to write a piece on Ancelotti, so he'll be the fourth part to that. And that's something also that we're going to do, is we're going to tap into the ABW 11 as much as possible to kind of cross over and tighten up the experience. So really, really pleased. The last piece on blogs before I be quiet, because Holic's got to get down in the pub, is that we do accept submissions. Absolutely. Again, no match reports or previews, please, and nothing abusive. But if you want to put down your thoughts in a critical way, or debate something, or you have something that's burning, let me know. And then we also have a Gmail account that you can submit to, abwblogs@gmail.com. So that's all on the site under Contact Us on the ABW site. But yeah, I think I spoke quite a long time on that, but that's done and dusted.
Nothing wrong with that. Thank you for that, Geoff. And Danny, we've also got some interviews planned. We've done one last night. We had the pleasure of sitting with Shaky and James Elkin to discuss the Arsenal shirt book, and the interview for that we're releasing on Monday, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, we are. It's going to try and be a regular feature where we're going to be doing book reviews, because these people have... the Arsenal book writers have been on many podcasts, and sometimes they don't get time to speak. A couple of them they've been on and they've had 4 or 5 minutes, so we like to give them a good half an hour just talking about them, talking about the book, their inspiration, what the book was about, why they did it, and just constantly talking about that. And it'll only be one of us and then the writers of the book. So you did it last night with the two blokes who wrote the Arsenal shirt, and that's going to be out on Monday. And then hopefully every Monday coming up to Christmas we're going to have a new book review. Geoff's Canadian Geoff is sorting out two of them. Arsenal Geoff is doing actually a separate podcast next week with Alex Finn, with Raj, talking about I think all of his books and all the stuff that he knows. It was originally just going to be a 20-minute, half-hour interview, but we decided that as it's international break that we're just going to make it into a special next week. So that'll be Raj and Arsenal Geoff doing that, and then we've got loads of people lined up. I think Amy Lawrence is going to do one. I'm doing John Sperling. Which ones are you doing, Geoff?
I am doing Arsene Wenger 50 Defining Moments, or 50 Defining Fixtures.
Yeah, he's very good. I bought that.
So yeah, we're hoping to get him on. He seemed quite eager, but we haven't got a time yet set. And then the second one, which isn't a book readily available to the public, is we're going to talk to Jordan and Chantel from Fresno Gooners about their book that they wrote. Which, for the life of me, I cannot remember the title. They're going to kill me about that. we all follow the Arsenal. That's what it is, and it's documenting their experience. They're graphic artists going to the New York Red Bull game in the summer. So they drove across America and met lots of friendly people, and they've gotten some Arsenal artists together to collaborate. So they're awesome, great folks, and I think we're even hoping. I know Danny, you said one of us. I think we're hoping to get Kris and get him on that too, because they asked for that. That was their green M&Ms, if you will.
And I'm very humbled by that. So thank you.
So those are the two that I'm going to cover. Yeah, it should be great.
It's a tattoo thing. I think that's what it is. Just before I sort of wrap things up with shout-outs, and I've just got one thing to mention about my Pirates boys. Holic, would you like to give the listeners a quick sort of bit of information as to where they can find your excellent writing?
Anybody who doesn't know, it's at www.goonerholic.com, and you're more than welcome to come along. It's not a daily thing, it's roughly every 2 or 3 days at the moment, but there's always a match preview, match review, book reviews, the usual stuff.
Fantastic, thank you very much. And I would very much encourage, obviously there's an awful lot of blogs out there, but I sort of getting yourself on this evening, Mr. Holic, was something I pushed for a number of months because I'm very keen on your stuff and I know a lot of people are, so if anyone hasn't had a read, please do. A very brief plug from me as well. Myself and Danny, obviously speaking to the guys, excuse me, at the Arsenal shirt book last night. They very kindly donated a couple of prizes which we'd like to make people aware of. They have donated a copy of the Arsenal shirt book, which we'll be giving away in some capacity in the coming weeks before Christmas. So look out on the Twitter timeline for that. We'll be doing a hashtag competition for that to win that book. They've also offered us a shirt, which we are also going to be giving away. That'll be a match spec shirt, so that'll be an official shirt to give away. So that's also another excellent prize. And from a slightly selfish point of view, for those of you that are aware of my ties to my Sunday League club down here in Plymouth, we did a very successful campaign via donations to help with our grassroots football cause down here in Plymouth pre-season, and thanks to the generosity of hundreds of people, we made a really substantial amount of money to help towards our pitch fees for the start of the season. We're looking to do the same again for Christmas, but we're not begging. We're going to provide a prize as well. Last time we gave an Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain match prepared, match worn shirt to the lucky winner. And courtesy of the Arsenal shirt boys, this time we're upping the ante. We're going to be giving away 2 Arsenal shirts this time for the Christmas draw. And as a second prize, I'm also going to provide another copy of the Arsenal shirt book to the runner-up. So if you just stay tuned to the Barbican Pirates Twitter feed, my feed, or indeed the podcast feed, when we've got more information on that, we will be letting you all know how you can get involved. And the donations will be as little as £1, and you can walk away with 2 Arsenal shirts. So stay tuned for those. With that being said, I'm going to wrap this up with some shout-outs. So I'll go to you first, Geoff, if I may.
You may, as soon as I get off mute there.
Thank you. We'll call
Yeah,
you Gimli.
so I've got one a guy who sometimes interacts with us. His name is Michael Russell, and his @name is @Arsenal_Michael. He gave me some nice feedback on my piece on Frank de Boer, and he's been asking for the subsequent pieces. So go give him a follow.
Thank you very much. Mr. Holic, do you have anyone you'd like to give a nod to on Twitter or anywhere else?
My old mate who sorts me out with away tickets, it'll be @West Stand Tone, exactly as that sounds.
Top man.
Good guy.
Really is, yeah, he's a top follow. Danny, anyone you'd like to shout out?
I'm just going to go and have a quick check and see how many people it is. It's 16,673 followers of the podcast account, and all the Facebook followers, and all the people who emailed in, all the people who voted for us for the FBA's Fans Choice Best Football Podcast 2014. We've won the trophy, and we're going to retire. Well, until next week.
at least Arsenal have won something this season, no matter what happens.
Yeah, we're gonna have a trophy cabinet built just for that one award. Didn't we win something else as well? Oh no, Geoff won the Prediction League award. Yes. So that I don't think that really counts because we gave it to ourselves. But yeah, just big thanks to everyone who voted for us. We've gone and done it. We were so close last year. And good luck to all the rest of the people that are Arsenal award nominees for other categories. And thanks to all the other people who were up against us, because they've all been tweeting saying, well done, congratulations for winning, like the Burnley podcast and the Liverpool one. I think there might have been one from N17 that have just been a little bit sour, but there again, they should be getting used to being beaten by us, because it happens in no matter what we take them on in, whether it's the league, whether it's the cup, whether it's even, they can't even beat us when it comes to podcast awards, so never mind, good luck.
Forever in our shadow of a trophy.
That's it. Lovely. And well done to Jason Davies for making his way all the way out. Not Jason Davis, isn't he? Don't say Davies. It's our own Jason. Went all the way from Wales at about 11 o'clock this morning, all the way up to Manchester. And bless him, he's like Winnie the Pooh with he had sandwiches in a little a sandwich bag. No, was it a handkerchief on a stick? Yeah. Like Dick Whittington, not actually Winnie the Pooh. And he went all the way out there, and he was scared and lonely in the dark, but now he'll be pissed up and knocking people out. So cheers to Jason for going up there and picking it up. Cheers to Raj for arranging the tickets for the train, and cheers to Geoff who sorted out the accommodation, this Arsenal Geoff, and cheers to everybody who voted for us and everyone who's had anything to do with the podcast over the last year.
Yeah, rumour has it Jace might even have put a suit on. So
What?
after that, yeah, rumour has it. You touched on it there, but also we should thank Gav at She War,
Of
certainly Roy
course.
Kilwood, Steve,
Yeah.
John, and who else? Am I missing somebody out? Am I missing anyone out?
No, I don't think so.
Anyone else that's been part of the original crew that's moved on to pastures new, or people that have just come in and out. Really appreciate anyone that's basically been involved in anything. And my couple of quick shout outs. I wanted to do one, but I couldn't split them, so I'll quickly do two. One is John Welsh. He's at jwelsh84.
You bearded ruffian.
Absolutely, we have plenty of natters about random football and FIFA and God knows what else. And the other one is a gentleman from the USA. He's from West Des Moines, Iowa, USA. He is Tim Hansen. He's at Tim Hansen JR as a junior. Very, very small amount of followers for the sense he talks. He's a lovely chap, and he tweeted me yesterday and said it was a privilege to have me following. I wouldn't quite go that far, but certainly deserves my shout out, so thank you very much.
Do you know we actually get a trophy, which is a glass, looks like a book stand, etched glass with fans' choice, and we get a certificate.
Yeah.
And we just, Jason's just taken a photo of them, so we retweeted it and favourited it on the podcast account. Wow, that's lovely.
Brilliant stuff.
We can all fight over who has that now.
I think that's as good a place to end it for tonight as any.
Yes.
Mr. Hollick, I'd like to thank you very much again for taking time out this evening and for being part of this evening's show and the pub.
Thank you for inviting me. Really appreciate it.
Oh, thanks for coming.
The pub awaits. Geoff, thank you for taking the afternoon off work to contribute as well. Very much appreciated, and thank you for your blogging work as well.
It's been an absolute pleasure, guys.
Thank you. Danny, thank you for keeping your clothes on and not putting bath pictures out. And,
Well,
if you could refrain from taking any sort of naked pictures in celebration tonight, that would be good.
Well, I'm not getting any younger. I know I need to procreate more little baby GFPs. So I'm looking for myself for a wife. So I've got to put out the naked pictures, reeling them in.
Goodness sake.
And thank you very much to you for hosting for the first time.
It's been a pleasure. I've really enjoyed it, and I'm sure I'll be back at some point. If not,
You say that, probably never.
And stay tuned at the end of the podcast, Danny. I think you've got a little Easter egg to pop on the end.
We certainly do, which may well have been you somewhere doing something.
Might have been, yeah. So stay tuned at the end of that. But thank you to all for joining us. Again, thank you to everybody for tuning in this week. I've been Kris. This has been a Bergkamp Wonderland podcast, and good night to you all.
Champions, champions. Oh, we've gone and won it with the greatest podcast in the world-ish, kind of. Well, nearly.
That'll do.
Night-night.
Now that's what you call timing.